Good morning, everybody. I'm CENTER Maine Zach Blanchard, and this is Political Brew. I'm joined now by Republican analyst Phil Harriman and Democrat Betsy Sweet. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Good morning.
I want to start things off in Augusta, where this week lawmakers debated bills that take aim at transgender people in the state. One piece of legislation would ban transgender girls from competing on girls' sports teams. The other would ban public schools from using names or pronouns for students other than what's listed on their birth certificates without parental permission. Betsy, I want to start with you. Proponents of this say this is about parental rights. Is that how you see it?
No. This is about young people's rights and to be young people. And you know, I just think that this has, I think there's certain elements within the Republican Party have looked for the weakest, the hardest people, the people who are most marginalized and say, okay, we're going to go after them. And so I think transgender kids are sort of the number one thing for that. So we see a bunch of bills that are aimed at those young people who already are struggling and trying to make it in this world that doesn't necessarily accept them. This is just a political ploy, and to use young people in that kind of political game is appalling.
Phil?
Contrary to what Betsy just said, Republicans don't think that way. They're not out to marginalize anybody. I think it's more about the role of a parent and the education system that their children are in. And I think to go beyond that is unfair to the child and to the parent.
All right, I want to take a minute to listen to how the lead sponsor of this bill focused on pronouns, described her reasoning for this. Here's Republican Representative Katrina Smith.
I really do not feel the kids should be exclaiming in a public environment with their friends and with their teacher a new name without their parents knowing. It's just going to create even more problems.
Betsy, do you think it's going to create even more problems?
No, it's not going to. I mean, can you imagine teachers, a young person saying, I'd like to be called Sue, and the teacher saying, well, I'd like to see your birth certificate. Tell me what it says. Let me call your parents. You know, like, I just think kids are exploring all kinds of things, you know. There's kids who want to be, my brother was named Edward, he wanted to be called Pete, you know, just because he liked the name Peter better. I mean, it is not causing more problems if we would just leave them alone and let them be, the children that they are meant to be. Let them figure it out. And then, of course, when it's time for the parents to be brought in, if it's possible, it's not always possible, and if it is, then great. It can be a joint decision. But this is just picking out a little thing and making a giant thing out of it.
Yeah, Phil, where does this come from on the Republican side?
Well, I think it's back to what I said earlier in the program. I think it comes from the role that parents feel they should have in their children's education in the school system, and to take it beyond that, I think is unfair. I think it's also, to Betsy's point, if I want to be called by a nickname by my friends and teachers, that's, I guess, okay. But what do you do in a parent-teacher conference when the teacher is sitting there with the parents and the child? What does the teacher refer to the student by?
They have a conversation about it.
Well, then the parents are involved.
Well, right, and that's fine, but the teacher's already called them whatever the student wants to be called.
We need an act of the Maine legislature for this.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. We still have months to go until Election Day, but Maine Secretary of State is raising concerns about an effort she says is confusing voters. No Labels, which is looking to establish itself as a party all across the country, has been issued a cease and desist by Shah. The Secretary's office sent letters to more than 6,000 voters who registered with No Labels to make sure they meant to. Phil Bellows, a Democrat here, do you see this move as a partisan one?
No, I don't. I think she's doing her job. The rules in Maine about party affiliation and how you enroll, and more importantly, how you get official status as a party, enabling you to be on the ballot and nomination process. She's doing her job, and good for her.
That's it?
Yeah, I mean, I think this no Labels group we have to take a hard look at it. I understand that people are frustrated with the two-party system. I am too. I said, but this group purports to be one thing, and then if you look at who some of their donors are, one of their big donors is Harlan Crow, the same guy who just was whining and dining Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court. So, you know, it's not a group with no political agenda. It's not a group with no labels. They have very strong opinions, and I think to fool people or to not be crystal clear with people that when you sign this petition, you are changing your party registration speaks a lot to the integrity of the group.
And while we're on the topic of elections, a not so great headline for Maine Republican Senator Susan Collins this week. A former defense contractor is pleading guilty to making more than $200,000 in illegal contributions to Collins' 2020 campaign. This was after Collins helped the firm he was the CEO of secure an $8 million Navy contract. Senator Susan Collins' team says the campaign had no knowledge and has cooperated fully with the FBI. Betsy, obviously Collins has time and time again proven that she can handle the heat in these kinds of situations. Is this the kind of thing that will stick for her?
No, and I don't think this is so much about Susan Collins as it is about money in politics. I mean, the fact that they were able to create a shell corporation and then funnel almost $150,000 by creating a shell corporation, by giving money, that's like me giving money to Phil to give to the candidate. It is a little bit hard to believe she didn't know anything as a candidate who ran for the U.S. Senate in that race, actually, in the primary. I mean, every time someone wrote a big check, it was like, hey, this is so great, oh my God. So it may be that she has such a machine she didn't know about it, but I really don't think that the heat is on her. I think the heat is on money in politics, and if we don't do something about that soon, we are going to not have a political system.
Phil?
Did Betsy just volunteer to donate money to my campaign?
I don't think so.
Only through you to him, so no one knows it was
I'm not a
me.
witness here.
But to Betsy's point, that's the crux of what happened here. Is these were straw contributions, money being shifted elsewhere that came through a donor that it would be easy for Senator Collins to not know. The key takeaway for me is that once she knew, she cooperated fully. Once the amount was identified, she donated it to a school system.
Well, I think one of the other key points is you got an $8 million contract, you think you have to pony up. That's just...
It's against the law.
I know, but it happens
Well, yeah,
all
that
the
doesn't mean it
time.
doesn't happen.
It happens all the time, and so that's our problem.
Yeah. Senator Collins is co-sponsoring a bill with Maine Independent Senator Angus King to strengthen security along the southern border, while also helping asylum seekers get jobs. Senator Kirsten Sinema, a Democrat from Arizona, has also signed on. It would make asylum seekers eligible to receive work authorization starting just 30 days after applying for asylum. Phil, on the surface, this might not seem like something Republicans would back, but is this the right way to go?
Oh, in general, I think it is. It's a couple of years too late, but at least it's being introduced. I think the work requirement that people who are here and want to work who can't, that helps them, it helps our economy. But let's remember, a high percentage of the people who are claiming asylee status are denied that status and arguably are going to be sent back to their home country.
Well, I think part of this bill, too, is to help with vetting people as they come across the border. So there's a lot of parts to this bill. I think that's a really important part. I think quickening, providing them more resources to quicken that process is really important. And I think this ability to work. I mean, now they have to wait 6 months at a time when our employers need people and they want to work. And so I don't think it solves the issue, but I think it's a really good step forward.
Negotiations are ongoing over the debt limit. In fact, today President Biden is expected to return from the G7 in Japan, cutting his trip short to get back to the table with congressional leadership. Phil, one sticking point here, Republicans now say they want to add tougher work requirements for some federal aid programs. Is this the time and place for this kind of negotiation?
Probably not, but as late as Friday early afternoon, they decided to take a break, so we'll be interested to see what comes out upon the president's return. But it was clear to me by Wednesday of this past week that all of the political leaders in Washington were saying, we're close, we're making progress, we're going to find a way to get this done, and they need to.
That's it?
Yeah, I don't think it's not the appropriate place to do other political negotiating. And so I was heartened to hear that everyone feels like they're closer. I think we will get there, and I hope we'll get there without setting a precedent for trying to establish law and policy in this negotiation, which is just about paying our debts.
When the stakes are so high, right?
And it's very high.
All right. In the House, Democrats failed in their efforts to force out New York Congressman Matt Santos. Santos, of course, has made headlines for lying about pretty much everything, even facing fraud charges. Instead, Republicans pushed a party line vote through to send the issue to the House Ethics Committee. Betsy, one might think this would be pretty cut and dry for both sides, but is it what it appears to be?
It's astonishing to me, and I think that they're looking at the numbers game that they have in Congress and that they need his vote. But there is nobody who can look at this guy, all of the indictments against him, what he's done. As he has lied about just about everything. I can't imagine that there's not people on both sides of the aisle, certainly Republicans as well, who say, you know what, this affects the integrity of our entire system, and we have to do this, regardless of what the numbers are, and they'll still have a majority. It is appalling to me that they have not acted in the other direction yet. But it's going to the Ethics Commission, which is also controlled by the Republicans, so I don't know what's going to happen. But if as a mother, not of little kids anymore, but man, what do you say? Oh yeah, it's okay to lie, cheat, steal, and you can still be a congressman in the United States. That's not good.
Bill?
I earlier in the political brew segments, after this story first broke, that was my comment. He should be taken before the Ethics Committee within Congress. I think to say he's guilty and expel him is not the right step, but certainly putting him up before the Ethics Committee and have that committee report out their findings and take a vote is the right way to go.
And you think that's more important than just doing it in Congress?
Yes. If we're going to have a standard that Congress people don't misspeak or tell lies, we're not going to have a Congress.
Do you think the Ethics Commission is going to be non-political?
They should be.
No, I know what they
people
should
like
be.
you
I'm
and I
asking
are
you.
going to hold them accountable.
Okay, all right.
You heard it here.
All right, shifting gears now. In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis continues to feel the fallout from his anti-LGBTQ efforts. This week, he signed several bills into law, doing everything from banning gender-affirming care to expanding the state's Don't Say Gay law and defunding diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at the state's public colleges. Phil, this is someone who's set to launch a bid for president in the next week. He needs to differentiate himself from former President Donald Trump. Is this the best approach?
Well, in order for him to sign those bills, they had to go through the Florida legislature. So it's not just Governor DeSantis making these decisions. It's the culture of the legislature in Florida. And it's not, in my opinion, that he's anti-anybody. It's about where is the appropriate place for these things to be discussed.
Betsy's rolling her eyes here.
Your turn.
This is not about where is the appropriate place for these to be discussed. What they're trying to ban is so broad and so wide, it's unbelievable. Disney just pulled an almost $1 billion expansion project because of this, and it's not because we don't know where we're going to discuss it. This is a political ploy. I don't know whether he believes it personally or not. I think it's a huge political mistake. I don't think he is reading the country right. I think he's in a bubble in Florida, and I think that not only is it bad politically, but it just hurts the young people, the people who are in those books or about those books or read those books to be able to feel good about themselves. That's who it's really hurting, and that is a long-term effect on people, and I think that's what's so criminal about this, and it's just really unfortunate to use human beings who are marginalized as political fodder is just the wrong thing to do.
Anything else, Phil?
Well, I don't disagree with the conversation that we need to be tolerant of anybody. It's a question of what's in the curriculum at what ages, and I think that, to me, is what the Florida legislature is saying.
But that's not up to politicians. That's up to educators and readers. And I would just say, if your life, and certainly my life, were in a book, we would probably be banned in Florida.
On a more positive note, Maine senators say they are backing former Maine CDC Director Dr. Shah to take the helm at the U.S. CDC. It comes after Rochelle Walensky said she was stepping down. Here's what Angus King had to say this week.
He's a star, and he knows the issues. He did a fabulous job in Maine. I think he'd be a great leader of the CDC, and I'm making that view known to the people down the street.
And Betsy, Dr. Shah is obviously a pretty beloved political figure here in Maine. So is this much of a political risk?
No, certainly not a risk. And I think it would be awesome. He really did an incredible job getting us through this pandemic. And then plus all those people with all that, I love Dr. Shah merch would then have a reason to wear it again.
Oh, certainly the right thing to do by our congressional delegation. If you don't have the support of the people from the state where he comes from, that's not a good way to get confirmed. But I think he's going to have a tough time to get through the confirmation process, not because of what he's done here in Maine, but because doesn't the Center for Disease Control warrant someone who's got a deep medical background that he doesn't have? So it'll be interesting to see how the confirmation process treats him.
Especially post-COVID.
Right.
Great.
All right, wrap it up. Winners and losers. Phil, we'll start with you.
My loser this week, Zach, is the congressional leaders and the White House. There was a report issued indicating that Social Security is going to run out of money within 10 years. The administration is proposing to raise $4 trillion in new taxes, and none of it is going to solve that problem. My winner this week is Virginia Oliver, a 102-year-old active woman lobster person from Rockland.
Awesome.
Top that one.
Okay, that's pretty good. My losers of the week are every member of the Republican member of the Criminal Justice Committee in Maine who voted unitedly against every single gun safety measure that was put forward. A waiting period to help prevent suicide, a background check to make sure they get in the hands of the right people. All of those things were opposed across the board with tired, old reasoning that just does not fit what's happening today. So they're my losers. The winner of the week is all the graduates. There are so many young people graduating from both high school but also college, from Maine, in other places, here in Maine, and they're our hope for the future, and I'm just excited for them. I hope we can give them a world that they want to be in and that they will continue to improve it.
Great. Phil, Betsy, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And that's going to do it for this week's Political Brew. The Morning Report is back right after this.